Welcome back, everybody, to this session. And I'm pleased to welcome Mun-Wai and Jeff joining us right from the US West Coast to entertain us with their Boldly Go Where Other Generations Have Not Gone Before. So, Mun-Wai, Jeff, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Well, welcome everyone. I'm so glad you're joining us on this journey to boldly go where other generations have not gone before. If you have questions during our talk, please put them in the Q&A section instead of the chat. You can also vote. We'll start with the highest voted question during the Q&A time at the end. Hi, my name is Mun-Wai. You can also call me MW. I've been on this Agile journey for over 20 years. I worked in organizations all over the world, started in engineering and ended with my last corporate title as Chief of Staff when I started messing around in HR finance and facilities. My goal is simple. I go after anything or any group that hinders a team working effectively together to produce a product that delights the customers. You can find more information on my website.
Hello, my name is JF. It's short for John Francis, which is my first name. I've been working in Silicon Valley, California for the past 30 years now, and my Agile journey started around 1998 when, as an engineer, I decided to try things I had read about on net news. I was very amazed with the results I got, and I've been doing Agile since then, constantly growing and learning.
Now, before we start, let's watch a short video.
Climate crisis has some fighting for action. One lawmaker in New Zealand was doing just that, and she left her critics in Parliament baffled, but not over her policies, over her witty response to a heckler.
That's right. 25-year-old Green Party MP Clover Warwick was speaking about the zero carbon bill and how it will affect generations to come when she was interrupted by another lawmaker who jeered at her age. Take a listen.
In the year 2050, I will be 56 years old. Yet, right now, the average age of this 52nd Parliament is 49 years old. Okay, Boomer. Current political institutions have proven themselves incompetent of thinking outside of a short political term.
Do you know that we now have up to 5 generations in the workplace today? These are the 5 generations in their year bands. And by the way, 40 years ago in 1980, there were only 3 generations in the workforce: GI generation, traditionalists, and baby boomers. GIs were 55 years old at that time, and Gen X was only 15 years old, too young to work. Do you think that the generations are very different? Here are the magazine covers ranging from 1976 to 2019. It doesn't look like we're so different after all. All generations want the same thing: to be respected, recognized, and rewarded for our work. The difference between us is the form factor that motivates us. Think about it. In the 1990s, you have arrived if the company gives you a company car. Today, people don't want the burden of finding a parking space at work or at home. However, they are happy if the company would pay for services like Uber. The desire thus is still the same. The company pays for transportation to and from work. However, the form factor is quite different. Here's another example of what matters to which generation in what life stage. Looking at the graph, the bigger the circle, the more it matters. Today, millennials view that they are recognized if you give them time. So more time equals more recognition. Thus, PTO, flex time, autonomy, these are their choice of currency. And nowadays, people are debating between returning to office and remote work. And when the bosses demand their workers to go back to the office, this is the preceding generations imposing their own expectations of reward and recognition. That creates a clash with the succeeding generation. So as expected, for example, Gen Z in the US are resigning in masses. At the same time, from another study, surprisingly, Gen Y and Gen Z prefer going back to the office more than Gen X and baby boomers. This illustrates our point perfectly. What matters to people changes in different stages of their lives under different circumstances, even with the same generation, let alone having 5 generations in the workplace. So having only one reward and recognition system doesn't work. It'll disengage workers. And disengaged workers are less innovative, less likely to stay long term, and focus more on output than business value, decreasing the company's agility.
So, how do we create a reward and recognition system that is adaptable enough for all generations? Well, let us tell you our stories. I'll go first. So, before the pandemic, while I was at this company, after the team met over 80% of their goals, we had some fun team events. Now, on top of that, we gave out special awards. Now, these awards were not monetary and they were inexpensive. Let me give you some examples. One prize was the Mickey Mouse Fantasia hat. This prize went to the one who made the biggest impact to the team through his ideas and solutions. That person also flew to all our global offices to help, hence the wizard hat. This became a well sought after prize because people thought they would get to travel all over the world. Now, another award was the Firefighter Award. The prize was a blow up toy fire extinguisher for the person who consistently put out fires. This award led to responsibilities being remapped in the team. I'm not going to detail here about the remapping. It will be illustrated in JF's story and my radical story later. There were other awards, but I think you get the idea. We had these awards, these events twice a year so long as the team met over 80% of their goals. Other groups like Product and UX UI wanted to participate when they heard about these awards. We required them to come up with a creative prize, because money by itself is not good enough. One of the engineers who was awarded told me, "This is one of a kind, Mun-Wai. I'll treasure it all the time." And he proudly displayed that in his cube with an anti-theft device so no one could steal it. By the way, HR was not involved in any of these activities. So what was being done? We tailored the awards and incentives to the team, unlike HR's traditional go-to methods. When the team likes the awards and incentives, they realize management knows them, cares about them, and appreciates them, and in turn, they work harder to earn those awards. We started in the headquarters, but team members told people in other offices because it was so much fun. And now all the offices follow suit and did their own version. Word of caution, this is a different budget from the annual bonus and salary increase, so make sure to include this in the next budget cycle. Now, once this kind of incentives was proven successful, my boss and I wanted to see if we could do something similar to get the team recognized on the company level. So we convinced the department heads and the regional general managers to have some special awards during the quarterly town halls and local all hands meetings. Those are all monetary awards in the US in the form of gift cards, but different form factors for different local offices, whatever motivates the people in that office. Anyone can nominate as long as they write a little blurb about the nominee's impact. The nominees can be a person or entire team, and we encourage nominations to be entire team. Eventually, this propagated to the company all hands, and for all the winners are announced in the town halls and all hands. The winnings are now a part of the HR record.
For me, I was a senior engineering lead at an enterprise company overseeing a critical project. My manager, who I adored, was very good, but he had a sly side. He came to me one day and said, "JF, we have a problem. If we want our product to be on the next CD release in 3 months, you need to attend the weekly CD board review meeting." Most of our enterprise customers didn't like to download things because of security concerns, hence the CD. Of course, as an engineer, I was like, ugh, meetings? However, this was my baby. I was architecting this entire product end to end and had my team doing Scrum. I really wanted to see this thing in our customers' hands, so I personally made it my mission to attend these meetings because I didn't want to wait another 9 months for the next CD release. A few weeks after the first CD release, my manager surprised me. He said, "JF, great news. I'm promoting you to a manager." And I was like, "Thanks, but I don't want to be a manager." He said that I was already doing a first-line manager's job. All the things I was doing with the team, getting them to deliver the product into the customer's hands multiple times, meeting with each member to help solve their problems, and interfacing with other departments in the company so the product goes out. These were all duties of a first-line manager. Frick. Sorry, something happened. Something happened.
We can still hear you, not a problem. Just keep
Uh,
going.
I can't see anything on my computer. Sorry. I'm going
Not
to
a problem.
continue. What happened here, my manager slyly took me out of my engineering silo, aligned my day-to-day work with the outcome in the end, and the alignment enabled me to take on some of his responsibilities that allowed me to be promoted.
So now let me tell you about a radical approach. In another company, I asked the teams, what does it take to get the product into the customer's hand? They said, you mean what does it take to launch or release a product, right? I said, no, because a released product doesn't necessarily reach the customer's hand. They said, but that's not our problem. I told them that they should care and make sure customers are delighted. Otherwise, customers won't pay and we won't get our salaries. So they started listing out what they do, their own responsibilities, and how those map into that question. They soon realized that did not come close to answering the question. So they started talking to the managers and others about what the responsibilities were in relation to that question. Once they understood those responsibilities, they realized some functions could not join them as a team, like marketing. But they now knew how to interface with those groups better. They also wanted to take some of the manager's responsibility into the team. The managers let them try, and some even coached them how to do those duties. When the team took on additional duties, they were remapping the roles within the team to include these new duties with the manager's help. The team and the managers worked together to redefine the criteria for promotions. This way, a clear growth path emerged and levels were redefined. It allows the team members to decide what to learn and which path to choose. It sets the stage for the promotion ladder. Interestingly, the managers liked what was happening because the team took over duties they didn't like to do. They thought, maybe this could work with their own bosses. So they went to the directors and asked, where do you fit in relation to what does it take to get the product into the customer's hand? Are there any duties related to that which I can try? That led them to remap responsibilities and redefine levels and growth path. Now, granted, those managers have good relationships with their bosses, so they felt safe to discuss such matter freely. The funny thing is, the directors were also liking it and wondered if they could do the same with their VPs. Now, they were more cautious because some VPs do not like being questioned what their part is in the process. So for those directors, they told their VPs that managers took initiatives by taking on some of their duties. Remember the one that they didn't like? And they asked, are there things you don't like in your job that perhaps I can help? When the directors didn't understand why a VP did a certain thing, they would ask for the purpose, which sparked some interesting discussions, some duties remapped again, new growth path identified, and levels redefined. At each level, people now know exactly what the growth path is, how the levels are defined, how they get promoted, and what being promoted means. With all the remapping and redefining, we still did not touch the corporate taxonomy. We separated out the roles and responsibilities. So for the outside world, they still see people getting salary raises and being promoted to manager, director, or VP, which is the older generation's expectation of reward and recognition, while the responsibilities associated with those roles have changed. Now, this was done one office at a time. We notified local and corporate HR once we redefined the levels and promotion criteria. What started out in the team propagated up the levels and became a radical change. Oh, we also did agile budgeting, but that's a story for another time. So, what are the takeaways? The key question of what does it take to get the product into the customer's hand teaches the team how to have a holistic view instead of just focusing on their own little part, may it be UX UI design or coding or testing, etc. It helps the team to focus on outcome instead of output and to identify the value and waste in the system. It also helps align the strategy and purpose to the day-to-day work. Now, second, it is tailored to the teams. It can be team-driven, like in my experience, or manager-driven, like in JF's experience, where the manager acted as a coach to him. Some of the responsibilities belonged to the manager previously, and now they're included in the team. You may have noticed the pattern is replicated across teams and up the levels. By the way, when you replicate up the level, as I mentioned in my story, the generation gap between the two immediate levels is not that big. So you can understand what motivates your immediate lower level and can support them even if that doesn't motivate you. That allows incentives to be changed to suit the needs of the generations in that level. If you compare the head of the company to an individual team member, the generation gap is so big that there is very little to no understanding of what motivates the lower level. And because of that, unfortunately, most of the time, the higher ups would dismiss the wants and needs of the lower level. And that's why the pattern is replicated up the levels, one level at a time. As the next generation gets promoted, well, they can change the incentives and rewards to satisfy the need at that level. Last but not the least, put thoughts into the rewards because it drives behavior. So be creative. You may notice in my story that not only those rewards were different, hence being creative, but they change from time to time. You need to keep it fresh, change it up, otherwise, people would game the system. When you do each of these four things, roles and responsibilities are remapped, levels and growth paths are redefined with agile values in them, and people are vested and engaged. And the result is you now have an adaptable and agile reward and recognition system that satisfies all generations and levels. So, in conclusion, the change is more about rewards and recognition based on purpose and values. Once you realize this, then you can come up with a system that is more adaptable. However, you need to keep it fresh, be creative, tailor it to the teams, try small before going big, so team to department, individual office to entire company all over the world, cautious to radical. And you definitely need the trust in the level where you want to get to. Now, when you start going radical, you remap roles and responsibilities, redefine levels and growth paths, and relook at organization structure. If you go very radical, you even touch on agile finance.
One more thing. Is it really all about generations? It may look like a generational context, but it can be applied in multiple contexts as well, like cultural context. You have different countries and cultures, and you can have a reward and recognition system that is different when you look at it, but in the end, the entire company's purpose is reflected.
Now, let me give you an example. This very creative example is to address the familial and parental pressure because they have their own expectations of what reward and recognition should be for their children. So, in Asian culture, parents expect their kids to be at least a director when he's in his mid 30s. To them, status and title go together. Missing one, you're considered good for nothing. However, the kid may not even want to go into management, hence the clash at home and affecting his work. Now, a general manager from one of the offices in Asia wanted to find a way to attract and recruit better candidates. And somehow he found a way to get that office to be awarded by the city and province that they're in. The award is not just the best place to work in the entire province, but it is a prestigious award. I can't describe to you what it is because no equivalent exists in the Western culture. Now, interestingly, there are a number of unintended consequences. First, people in the office are proud of the award and they tell their parents about it. Now, their parents can brag about the kids without having the kids being needing to be a director or VP. They would say something like, "Do you know that my son works in this company which is awarded this ABC award?" Second, people in the office work even harder to ensure they're worthy of the award. And third, when the other officers heard about this, they decided to do a similar thing for their own local offices. Lastly, a more profound effect is that the award elevated this Asia office achievements. When headquarters started singing praises, it further elevated this Asia office in the eyes of the other offices around the world. So that's the example of cultural context. What other context can there be? Well, you tell us. Before we end, I would like to have a word with the HR professionals who are here today. You may notice that in many of my experiences, I did not involve HR. So does it mean HR doesn't fit in an agile world? Oh no. On the contrary, they are crucial to an organization. It's time we take a look at the HR department and understand how their job can affect the agility of the teams. As you know, we are not HR professionals. However, I have worked closely with HR, so I know how traditional HR hinders agility and what a product development organization needs from HR. And when I say traditional HR, I mean functional HR model with specialists. So first, let's talk about our impression of HR. HR is heavily siloed. For example, recruiting, talent management, total rewards, learning and development, HR operations, etc. These are all different functions within HR. They work separately and don't talk to each other. Now, I have worked in organizations where there are HR BPs, the HR business partner, but those HR BPs only partner with senior management. So they only understand what senior management wants. They don't know what the team wants, which leads to HR having the go to methods, and they apply them to all groups and situations. Now, those methods and initiatives may work for some groups, but not for others. Also, HR designed solution at the top and rolled it out to the rest of the organization. Now, if HR doesn't want people to go around their processes like I did and will continue to do, then those need to change. I also found that more and more HR departments rename themselves to people operations, yet keep doing all that I mentioned in the previous slide. That does not work. Your mindset, roles, and practices need to change with it. So, what are these changes? First, all the silos within HR needs to come down. And second, HR needs to understand not just the company's strategy, but also business strategy and product strategy. Those are not the same thing. They also need to understand the teams, what Agile is, and what C-suite wants. Otherwise, they won't be able to help define culture, organization structure, hiring strategy, promotion strategy, remote work policies, well-being initiatives, etc. Now, if HR understands what I just mentioned, then they would know that there's no such thing as one size fits all. HR really need to understand the goals and problems at the source, whether it be team level or senior executive level or anywhere in between. Prototype a solution and test it out. And when HR does all those four things, you will find that the roles of HR, or you may call it people operations at this point, and Agile coach start to merge. And that's because HR should be the ones who lead the transformation in the company. Now, all these may sound daunting, but don't be discouraged. There are places where HR professionals can get help on how to apply Agile in their discipline and how the principles and roles need to change and how to work with other departments in the company. The Agile HR book, co-authored by Rena Hellstrom and Natal Denk, is a great resource as it also includes real-life examples of what they have tried and experienced. And that's it. Thank you for listening so attentively. We're now opening the floor for questions. Please continue to put your questions in the Q&A section. Are there any questions? I don't think I see any questions in the Q&A section.
Thank you very much, Mun-Wai and Jeff. I'll let people come up with the questions. In the meantime, I already have one question. What is your answer to these transformations? Is it HR? Is it from the team? Because you've mentioned different angles. So what is your entry point to triggering these kind of changes in organizations?
Well, I will tell you what I prefer, and I will tell you what happened in real life. What I prefer is start with the top, because if the mindset is not changed from the top, it really doesn't matter what you do in the team level. However, the entry point in real life is wherever you have the most problem. That's the entry point, because wherever you have the most problem, that's where they actually want to change, and they are seeking solutions and help. And that's the easiest to go in.
Thank you. Any more questions from the audience?
Wow, are we this clear? That's the first time we're this clear, though.
If there are no more questions, I guess I'm going to share our contact information again. So here's Here's our information again in case you want to contact us. We would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Thank you very much, Mun-Wai. And thanks very much to all the attendees at this time of day. Please stay tuned. Can have a long break because we still have 2 sessions afterwards. Again, from people from the West Coast. So we'll have Amber Vanderberg and Jen Donahue speaking at 1800 Belgian time. So stay tuned and thank you again for joining us and sharing these insights with us.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks,
All right.
everybody.